I wanted to share my story with you guys. It's been a little over a year, and I've had reservations about sharing my story on this platform because, of course, it always brings up a lot of anxiety and everything, but because it's International Widows Day and because something just so special happened, I want to share everything with you guys. Easter of 2020, my late husband Ben and I were kind of looking for a time to go floating on a canal that was next to our neighborhood with his two siblings and one of our best friends from college who also lived in the area. And we had floated on this canal before. We hadn't had any problems. We'd been fishing, but it connected to a lake that the neighborhood was also, kind of nestled on. And everything started out fine, fun, just kind of floating. And it was so sunny. The weather was so nice. The pandemic really had just kind of started to shut everything down. And originally he and I were supposed to be flying off to Scotland for a year for his job. So we were planning on leaving after things opened up. We didn't realize, obviously, how long it was going to last. So we just wanted to do something fun with, kind of our social circle. And while we were floating, a snake slithered past in the water, and we were just like, maybe we need to not float in this area, just to be safe of all the critters and everything, because we knew that there was wildlife around there and we wanted to be safe. And we got to the mouth of the canal where it met the lake, and his brother even fell in the water, and it was way steep, and we laughed and thought it was so funny, and he crawled back up on his floaty, and we thought everything was still just fine. Pretty much what seemed like out of nowhere, because it was so sunny, a weather front blew in, and everything happened so fast. The current picked up, the waves picked up, the wind picked up, and we tried paddling against it to get back into the canal, but everything was just too strong, and our boats just kept getting pulled out closer and closer to the middle of the lake. And Ben and my boat was floating very far away from the other boat that his sister and our friend was in. His brother's floaty was tied to our boat, but because of how big the waves were and how strong the wind was, it kept flipping him off and right into the water. I honestly don't remember how many times Ben's brother was thrown off of his floaty before he started to swim off, because he was exhausting himself trying to climb back on every time. And we could hear yelling from the area where the other boat was, and we knew that our friend was also in the water. And before you ask, no, we didn't have life jackets because we thought we were just going to be in the canal. Was that smart? No, but it's definitely made me realize the importance of water safety. But as he was swimming off, the wind was whipping the floaty around, and it was catching us in the boat. It kept pinning me against the boat because the wind was so strong, and the floaty was obviously big enough to hold a person. So I was absolutely terrified, panicking, trying to get this thing unknotted from the side of the boat because it was just acting as a sail and taking us farther and farther away from everybody. And the sides of our boat, there must have been a leak in the boat because it was losing air. Still afloat, but definitely becoming flimsier. And I remember when I was struggling trying to untie the floaty from the boat, I almost fell in, and Ben grabbed me and pulled me back into the boat. And, everybody was just yelling, swimming to shore. After that, you know, Ben continued to wrestle with the floaty because it kept pinning me against the boat. And because the sides were soft, I don't remember exactly what happened right before. But the sides gave way and he rolled into the lake. The water rushed into the boat and pulled both of the oars out with it. So when he popped up, the oars were already floating away. And I didn't have any other way to steer the boat. And when his head came up from the water, absolutely sheer panic in his face. And he just looked at me and said, I need to help Andrew, our friend. I need to help him. He's in the water and he's not a good swimmer. I need to help him. Remember, he said that to me, and then he turned and just swam away. And I remember I was just screaming his name until I couldn't see him anymore. And at that moment, I realized that I had packed my cell phone in the boat with us. And so I found it, and I immediately called 911. And you know, it was hard to hear over the wind and the waves and just the yelling in the distance. But they were trying to identify where we were on the lake. And I kept telling them what neighborhood I could see, that we were in the middle of the lake. And they said, okay, well, keep your phone close by because we're going to have the response team call you back. And they hung up on it. Seemed like forever until my phone rang again. It's probably only a few minutes, probably even less than 5. But I just remember every second felt like an eternity. And I couldn't tell what anybody was saying, but I could hear yelling and I could see my sister-in-law waving the paddles, hoping that someone on shore would see us. And eventually, when I got the call back, they told me where they were dispatching from. And I told them that that wasn't where we were. And they said, well, we're already coming. We should be there in about 30 minutes. And my heart sank, but they kept tossing my call around to different people. So I kept having emergency people hang up on me and call back. After getting tossed around, you know, from emergency response person to emergency response person, I heard boats. And a couple of the civilians on shore that were outside saw my sister-in-law waving her paddles. And they got in their boats and they came and pulled everybody from the water. I was so far away from everybody else. I was pulled out of the water by a completely separate boat than who got everybody else. And whenever I got up into the boat, the very, very kind person was like, I have the other boat on a phone call. Do you want to talk with them? And I was like, yes, please. I need to make sure everyone's okay. And I got on the phone and I was like, we pulled the 3 people from the water. I was like, 3? There was 4. Who's all there? Who did you get out of the water? And I heard him say, hey, what are y'all's names? And they said my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, and our friend. They said that they didn't pull Ben from the water and that they couldn't see anybody. So by about that time, the emergency response people were getting their boats in the water and they were coming out. And we got to a private pier of one of the people who came and rescued us. And it was then that a sergeant came and spoke to us and said that they would be searching for Ben until it got dark. And I looked out on the water and it was so still. It had gotten so still after we got on that pier. And it was awful because I didn't know where Ben was. The sergeant told us that they would search, that they were going to have thermal cameras on helicopters flying by to see if they could find anything. They didn't want to give any assumptions at that point. They said, that they would continue to search until they found something, but that if it was worst case scenario, it was possible that it would take a couple of days to recover anything. The very, very kind people who rescued us took us in a car and kind of snuck us past all the news so that we wouldn't have to deal with any of that. Got back to our cars and drove home, and that was the worst car ride of my life. And I just curled up on the couch and laid awake until his mom arrived with the uncle very early in the morning. The next 3 days are a little bit of a blur. I posted on social media about starting search parties so that, we could aid the police by searching the shorelines, because they were basically having their boats in the water from sunup until sundown, searching for any signs of Ben, whether, the current carried him somewhere, if he was on shore, if he was hurt and wasn't able to contact us. And the community was absolutely amazing. The response I got of people saying, "We're walking the shore, we're watching for him, we're praying for you." It was amazing in literally the darkest few days of my life. On the third day, we were taking a lunch break in the park, and we got a call from the sergeant asking where we were because he needed to speak with us. He didn't want to say anything over the phone, but my heart sank. I knew what the talk was going to be about. And whenever he arrived at the park that the search party was having a lunch at, the sergeant took Ben's mom and I aside to a bench and informed us that a little before noon on that day, they had recovered somebody from the water that matched his description. And my worst fear had been realized. Ben drowned trying to save our friend. And I was now going to have to live without him. I didn't know what to do. As I was falling apart on the ground, the sergeant looked at us and said, "I know this isn't what we wanted, but I just have to tell you that in all of my years working in this department, I have never seen a community response like this before. We had pilots volunteering not only their time, but aircraft to help in the search, and that never happens." And as I was falling apart, I also felt so blessed for the people that took the time, who didn't even know me or Ben, and cared enough to go and look, just to give me hope for a couple of days. Since then, it's been a long journey so far. I'm not going to go into all the ups and downs right now. That's for another day, another story time. But, for any widows who have experienced not only the loss of their spouse, but trauma and everything like that, the things that I've had to deal with afterwards, from flashbacks and, PTSD in various forms. I want you all to know that you can make it through, and every grief journey is going to be unique, but there's also a lot of similarities and a lot of people that you can reach out to. I found Modern Widows Club that you can find at modernwidowsclub.org, and they're just working to make our lives a little bit easier. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my story, and if you're a fellow widow, then please check out Modern Widows Club. They have lots of resources. Their motto is going from grief to growth, because we all have to take that journey when we lose a spouse, and it can be really difficult, but they're there to help you through the process. And if you're interested in what I've been up to since that video came out, I've been doing a lot with music that's been inspired by my life with Ben, and I'd really love to continue to share it with you guys. So please like and subscribe, and I'll have a really, really awesome post next Friday.